All right, Jacob and Zach and anyone else we might be missing that is not here. We hate that you're not here. So here's what we're doing today on the 16th. Hey, no, this is not Mortal Kombat. So I have a confession. I have a true confession to make. My brother is cooler than me. And just like, so well, hold on for the thank you for those of you. Is there a reason we have headphones on?
I just had them from last class.
Okay, well then fix it, please, because it's kind of embarrassing when we have to fix it. So my brother is cooler than me.
No.
Because he owns, and like legit, he owns a Porsche. He owns a Firebird. He owns even a boat. He has decided that toys with motors, are his thing. So if I wanted to own a Porsche, I'd probably just buy this and say, haha, Brad, I have a Porsche 911 now too. Because that's literally, he bought a Porsche 911 because that's the same car that my uncle used to have. So he decided, like, when I grow up, I want one. But my car would maybe be a 1/24th scale, meaning it would take 24 of those cars lined up end to end to be the same size as the actual one. Or 24 cars lined up width-wise, because everything scales down appropriately. If you buy a model car that is like a nice model car, everything, wheels, steering wheels, like the seats, everything should be scaled exactly. Because they just run it through a computer program and then, they have fancy things make it. So if I buy this Firebird, it might be a larger scale car because it's only a 1:8 scale, meaning it would only take 8 of these model cars to make the entire thing. Yeah, so like 8 of them lined up would be the same length as the whole thing. So some model cars are bigger, right? So the 1/24th is probably more standard. The 1/8 is probably like a nice kind of more expensive one because it is going to be bigger. Some of them are made with metal, right? You get actual metal parts that actually have to be put together. Noah? Yeah, so every dimension should be scaled accurately. Otherwise, the car wouldn't look right, right? If the height, that's a brilliant question though. If the height was the only thing not scaled correctly, this thing would either look like it was squashed or look. See, Nick is envisioning what I'm looking at.
Wait, so this looks like real leather? Could a mouse drive it?
So, now my brother does not have a Bugatti, but if you were to try to get a Bugatti Chiron, I don't know, I can't pronounce other words, this might be a 1/18th scale, somewhere between the 1/24th and the 1/8th. So here's where all this is going. Without having to read all of this about our model trains, you really can get everything you need to know from over here. Because I decided to actually use my whiteboard today. So to make the numbers nicer, we're going to say that a real railroad tracks, do not play on railroad tracks, by the way, a real railroad tracks, and never walk railroad tracks while wearing headphones. Never, ever, ever do that. I know sometimes people walk tracks to get places, never wear headphones. It's seriously dangerous. So if we consider those 3 feet wide to make math a little bit nicer, I don't know exactly how wide they are. It's probably very close to 3 feet because in Coshocton we would walk on road tracks a lot, but we didn't ever have headphones on. And if our model train that we're going to use has tracks that are 3/4 of an inch wide, yes, I gave a little speech bubble there just because I was having fun. I'm trying to fake it till you make it, so I still don't feel great today. I'm 100% acting right now. I'd much rather be in bed, but I need to be here, so I'm faking it till I make it. So what is the scale? Now, if we talk about these things having a 1/8 or a 1/16 or 1 whatever, that means that these would have to be measuring in the same unit. Right? So you can't make a scale that's using 2 different units. So 1/24 would have to mean if I measure 1 inch on the scale, it's 24 inches on the real car. If I measure the whole car is 1 foot, the real car is 24 feet. Right? So whatever scale I use, it has to be used for both. So if your wheels are turning, you can realize immediately we're not in the same scale over there. So that'll be one of the first things we need to fix. But then we also can't use fractions. So we have to get our scale to the point of 1 to something. Right? So what we're going to set up on our paper is the scale that we're going to want to create is going to be the model this down on that beautiful piece of blank graph paper. We're going to make this the model. The model compared to the actual. So some of the scales that we had examples of there in the start is like 1 to 8, meaning if you measure 1 on the model, it's 8 on the actual. 1 to 24, if it's 1 on the model, it's actually 24 on the actual. And we know trains are big, model trains are not. So we need to figure out what is the scale. Your scale will not involve units because they have to match. So at that point, we can ignore the units, say we don't need these anymore because they match. Any questions on what your first task is? Leah.
I don't have a question, but do you want to hear a story really quick?
If you have 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah. So my aunt and uncle are like that, and they have like all those cars and stuff, and they'll give like my dad little cars for Christmas, like the toy cars.
Yeah.
Because he really likes them. And then they actually flipped over one of their cars that was worth like a ton. It's not funny, but it was.
Are they okay?
Oh yeah, they're okay. Just the car isn't anymore.
Okay. Well, I mean that happens sometimes. Like, yeah, most people at some point in their life will be involved in a car wreck, whether you were the person doing it or the person like receiving.
It was like a
So.
really expensive golf cart type thing.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of 3 different accidents. So yeah, I've been hit 3 times. Luckily, I was in a car when I was hit. All right, go for it. You've got everything you need. 3 feet, 3/4 of an inch. Go for it. Model to the actual. And then, once you figure that out, you should be able to figure out how large the model train wheel of the Rio Grande will measure. No, those were just examples. Yeah, those were just examples. To say it again, those 1 to 8, 1 to 24, those are just examples. Neither of them are your answer here. Neither of them are the answer you're going to get. I am, because I know what the answer here is.
You taught this class for years.
11 to be quite accurate. Well, okay, no, because we haven't been using CPM the whole time I've been in the district.
The thing is 175 inches.
I've only been teaching CPM for probably 4 or 5 years. So what do you think the scale is? I guarantee it is not that. Remember, we have to be working in the same units. It has to be 1 to, well, it has to be a whole number to a whole number. 1 to something is the simplest. But if you go 2 to something, we can divide it down. If you have like 5 to something, we can do it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we're going to want 1 to something.
Yeah, but you could also go 2 to 3 because you can't really convert that to 1.
I mean, if you had a scale that was 2 to 3, you would simplify it down to 1 to 1.5. Like literally, you always start with 1. Of like, if this is 1, what's it going to measure on the big one? Yeah, we always want to use 1 as our reference.
Pilot. It's 1 to 27 for the tracks.
I don't think so.
Is it?
Guys, talk with each other. Share work with each other. Check each other's work.
You want to divide it. That's dividing for.
Oh, I knew what I wanted to be doing right now. Ignore what I'm giving you for the moment. Ignore it. We'll get to it in a minute. I just need to pass them out. Nope, sorry, I gotta pass these out. Talk to your partners.
Wait, why say graph paper's bad right there?
Alphabetical order. This shows me not. Ignore it. Nope, ignore it.
I'm ignoring it.
Not flip it. Ignore it for now.
Wait, Mr. Hudson, why on the board does it say graph paper's bad? Hudson 2023.
Because at one point I said graph paper is bad for this lesson because we were drawing algebra tiles.
Graph paper is
And graph paper doesn't help when we're drawing algebra tiles.
ignore
Unless you have an answer. I don't know why we're looking on the moon. You have to do something to get things in the same unit, right? There's multiple options.
What do we do?
Yeah, you gotta do something. Nope, ignore it for now. Also, why I didn't grade the back paper. We're gonna finish up this grading all together. Yes.
I don't understand this.
Oh, well, it came for a moment. We're gonna fix it and get it to 1 to something. We want to get it to be able to say 1 to something.
75 is good.
Is it easier to turn inches into feet or feet into inches? It is easier to turn feet
No, it is.
into inches.
So it is 148. It'd be 44 divided by 48.
Yeah, and then also take math notes in Sharpies. Yeah, so good. Like you would be on silly things. Ignore it for now. No.
It'd be this much
Ew,
wheel.
it's already plugged in back there, actually. Oh, yeah, yours is just thick. You can print it on one side. Yeah, I'll-
0.91 inches.
But wouldn't it be as a 666 if you're rounding?
Is an up and
Wouldn't it be
down.
0.92?
So be careful. Does he plugged in right there?
Shouldn't you're rounding?
Ignore this one. It's not there. Doesn't even exist. You need a paper bag? You sound like a
Now that you
hyperventilator.
put this here, now I really want to touch it.
Wait, now I don't understand.
Now I can't. Mr. Hudson, I feel like telling us to ignore it makes us want to ignore it less.
Oh, I know. I just can't pass everything out at the same time. So,
Ow.
Now can I not ignore it? Can I acknowledge it now?
no, that still does not exist.
Can I acknowledge it now?
So what we really have here is a comparison between two quantities, which is a ratio. Thanks. So
L ratio.
we don't have variables or anything else. This is a ratio, right? A comparison is a ratio. Hey, I got cards now. Although Soap has a hand up. Do you have a question? So, Leah, would you rather convert inches into feet or feet into inches? And how do I convert feet into inches? Times 12 because there are 12 inches for every foot. So if you want the justification of why this works, we put 3 feet over 1, we multiply by 12 inches over 1 foot, which this is a giant 1, right? Because these values are equal to each other, even though they're different numbers. So this comes out to be how many inches?
46.
Yeah, and I think most of us probably know that there are 36 inches in a yard. So now we've gotten down to 3/4 of an inch compared to 36 inches. So, guys, if we approximate, we know that we're going to have 1 to something bigger than 36. Because 3/4 needs to get bigger. And 36 is then going to get bigger. Because we have to do the same thing to both. So,
Yay. So I added 1/4 to each side.
we cannot do that. Because addition breaks it. That is not proportional. So instead of, I'll give you another chance to turn that frown upside down. Instead of, hey, put them down because it's like rude to so trying to think. Instead of addition, because addition breaks proportionalness, what else could we do to make numbers bigger?
Times it by something?
We can multiply. How do I turn a fraction? And now
Multiply by the reciprocal.
the reciprocal is what we could multiply by on both sides. So if we multiply by 4/3, this becomes 12 over 12, which is just 1. And if we multiply this by 4/3, Well, I can cross reduce if we remember how to do that. 3 on bottom, 36 on top. Divide them both by 3. I get 12 and I get 1. So over here we get 48. And our scale turns into 1 to 48.
I was close.
Isaac.
I was very close.
I first I converted it to feet, and then I just divided
Hey
it.
friends, a classmate's asking a question. If you're talking right now, you're being extremely rude.
I did converted feet to inches, and then I divided 36 by 3/4.
There are other ways to do this. Did you get back to 1 to 48 or 48 to 1, depending on which direction you went? Yeah. So as long as you get back to the same scale. There's also a method that can use keep, change, flip. There's like, we could use decimals. There's a lot of ways we could do this. But this is what makes, in my head at least, the most sense of not needing a calculator. Like, we didn't need a calculator here. Nick?
So, this can also tell you about how you can find the way to get from one number to another just by given the scale factor of one of them.
Yeah. So if you measure like the wheel, good segue. If you measure the wheel of the actual Rio Grande Railroad to be 44 inches high and wide and every dimension because it's a wheel. So how big would the wheel on the model train be? Take a moment with your partner, figure this out. How big would the wheel on the model train be if the actual is 44? Yes. No, the scale factor is 1 to 48. Because that's what we just figured out. It's 1 to 4. So this is our model, right? Model, not at all what I want. So this is model to actual. Right, we got 1 to 48. Now we could also flip that and make it like a vertical ratio and do like 1 to 48 or 48 over. Like, you could, yeah. So I might go ahead and do that. So if we flip our ratio, for this lesson, maybe. I don't know how much those videos from last year covered. A lot of times I went like partway through. So Liam, help me out here. If I'm trying to put that 44 somewhere, and I know maybe this isn't how you and Caden did this, but does that 44 go with the model or the actual?
The 44 is the actual.
It's the actual, right? Because it's the real train. Guys, 44 inches is like, it's big. Like from the train wheels are big, right? You don't want to end up in its path. You will lose, right? Like my high school physics teacher did a lot of questions with trains, and oftentimes if it involved a person, the person ended up losing. So if we are going, wait, guys, this is just a proportion. What? How, if I don't know what to multiply by here, how do I figure it out? Anybody? Divide backwards. Grab your calculator if you haven't done this. We're going to figure out this scale factor. Do 44 divided by 48. What did you get? Oh,
Value versus car.
What is, what?
That's a fight in Street Fighter. It's a special fight.
Hey Bryson, are you doing what we're doing together?
Yeah, we did that.
So how big is, what'd you get for how big is the model?
0.916 repeating.
So if this is the scale factor happening across the bottom, hey, because I heard a couple people ask, wait, why are we doing, if we don't know what to multiply by, we divide backwards to figure it out. We're getting smaller, so this makes sense. And well, if we start with 1, multiplying by 1, as Bryson just said, doesn't do anything, and we just get exactly the scale factor that we just had. But we'd have to say inches, right, since we know that this was inches. So whatever unit they now give us, we know that's the unit we're going to work with. If they give us feet, we're going to work with feet.
That's a pretty small train.
Well, I mean, it's a model.
You could more comfortably say it's 11 12 7 inch.
Or if we actually 44 over 48 reduces to 11 twelfths, which means that this is actually 11 twelfths, which means that this is actually 11 twelfths. And once again, Nick has proven my point. Fractions are better.
Good.
All right, now that thing I told you to ignore, look at it.
What is this?
That's because you were doing such a good job at ignoring it.
I actually forgot. Thank you. I'm flattered.
Take 90 seconds to look through my feedback to you right now. Yeah, which means you didn't get it right. You're lucky I didn't actually get a stamp made that says dogs, cats, pizzas, ? Because I asked Mr. Flynn if I could get one of those, and he said, I can get you a mastered stamp. I was like, no, I want dogs, cats, pizzas. And he's like, why? I said, because when kids don't put labels on things, I say, what are you talking about? Dogs, cats, pizzas, gold? Like what? Like aliens?
When's your birthday?
I just keep making, like, what? That is irrelevant. So, that's April. I don't think I'm allowed to tell you guys yet, because we're doing some Chinese zodiac thing. At least that's what I've been told.
I already.
Okay, time for the funny story about when my sister and I got in a fight, and she said I didn't know her birthday, and I said, yeah, it's August 18th, and then I said, what is my birthday? And she says, ha, that's easy, it's the last day of April. I go, okay, what is that? She goes, April 31st. I had to walk away from the argument, because you can't argue when you're laughing out loud, because your sister, who's 3 years older than you, doesn't know how many days are in April. So, that's my birthday. So, this test, everything is graded except the very final question. Well, 2 if you count 11, but 11 doesn't quite count. So, together, let's all look at number 10. Everybody flip to 10. Put a highlighter in your hand. Put a highlighter or a pen. Who what? We're going to talk about that in a second. All you need right now is be following my directions.
I'm kidding.
Bryson, remember not everybody picks up on sarcasm the same. So I appreciate that you then clarified, like, hey, I'm kidding. I appreciate you did that. I have to catch myself on that of like, wait, did people realize? All right, check it. Actually, Isaac, will you throw the doors for somebody back there? There's just enough noise coming in. Hey, you are not using this to do your test. I don't know why you won't disappear. There we go. You're not using this to do your test. You're checking if you had already done this. And then we're going to talk about 11 just because it's fun. But guys, the top face and the bottom face are of course identical because it's a prism. The top and bottom have to be the same if it's oriented upright. Isaac? Where? What? Plus 52?
Yeah, on the back face.
Yeah, for the back face.
I don't know. Give me a second to check.
I got
Oh, no, that was me doing distributive property. Give me a can I work through this?
because I didn't get that.
Hey, can we like go part by
I
part?
get the same answer.
Hey, stop it. Just stop everything. Again, to say it again, I don't feel good today. I'm trying to fake it. I don't have a lot of patience. Let's talk about this. Triangles are base times height times 1/2. But for base and height, you have to have the right angle. So the 26 does not get used for the triangle. The 24 that comes from the bottom, right? It's also going to be this edge. And the 10 that comes from the bottom, also going to be this edge. 24 times 10, divide that by 2, we get 120. Any questions on the top face? Notice how I'm going to go one at a time. The right face, funny enough, is also 120 because it's 10 by 12. Any questions on that one? That's just coincidental. All because these two numbers are the same, it doesn't mean anything. It's not a code, it's not the Illuminati, it doesn't mean anything. The front face, and I show you how I try to do math without a calculator. The front face is 24 by 12. You know what's easier to multiply by than 12? 10. So I did 24 times 10 and then 24 times 2. 24 times 10, 24 times 2, and put them together. You could also use a calculator, but I like to flex my brain. Back face, this edge of 26 will go with the back face, and then this edge of 12 will go with the back face. So if I break up my multiplication and do 26 times 10, 260. 26 times 2, 52. Add those together, 312. Now that we've talked through that, any issues with how I got to my 312? Because like I make mistakes, but I think this is correct.
Yeah, that's also what I got. I got that too.
So then the bottom face, it's got to match the top, right? You could draw a little dotted line if you want to visualize it, but it's got to match the top. If we're oriented upright, which we are. So then your total surface area, add them all up. And volume, take your big B, multiply by your height, 1440. We're only using highlighters right now. Reminder, if you have a pencil in your hand, it's extremely disrespectful to me trusting you guys. So, if you need to go back and fix any of that, obviously I've already told you the answers. So just make sure it makes sense to you because we're not done doing surface area and volume type work. We're just like taking a pause on it right now. We will get back to it at the 8th grade level in about a month or two, which will then involve pyramids and the other more complicated shapes. 7th grade level, all we needed to do was prisms. Then, and you can be mad at my answers if you want, but guess what? I have a little piece of paper that says I know math. Here are your answers for unit conversions if you want them. They have no impact on the mastery grade. Can I ask why you're attacking your paper with a highlighter? Okay, but you're being a little excessive, and also then it bleeds through to the other side. Then the color's probably not too bad. Maybe the pink's going dead. Yeah, maybe it's going dead. So, why 144? Envision 12 inches by 12 inches, 12 times 12 makes 144. Then if I make each of those inches at the bottom, yeah, you didn't do this problem, you could just write these down just to have them somewhere. If I make a square foot and then cube that foot, I stack 12 layers on top of each other, and it makes 1,728. Yeah, it quickly gets out of hand. Liam?
Should we write this one down with highlighter?
No, you could grab a pencil at this point if you want. Like, yeah, you could write these down in a nicer way. We could also just like put these on a separate piece of paper if we're gonna need them. Most of the time I will give you the conversion. It's also, I think, in your plan book. Like, I don't know if all of these are, but I know a bunch of them are.
So, actually, for a lot of these, when you're, for example, solving for, square feet in a square yard.
Yeah, sorry, my F looks a little weird right there. My pen must have lifted up. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's essentially saying 3 times 3 equals 9 squared, which is 3 squared equals 9 foot squared.
Yeah. Literally,
So-
squaring says make a square. I know these are
Yeah,
mirror sticks,
So
but envision with me.
essentially, you're doing, like if I'm doing A, for square foot, I'm doing 12 squared inches squared,
Essentially, yeah. Yep.
and you can use the same thing for volume as well.
Yep. 12 cubed, inches cubed, centimeters cubed, whatever. Isaac?
I got these all right. I just forgot the units.
Well, then you didn't get them right. I mean, you might have the number accurate, but you're not all the way right if you don't have a label. So,
For D, how'd you get 27 out of 3 times 3?
so imagine you're going to make a cube. This is also why I wanted to upgrade to a couple of these tables. We're going to make a cube that is a yard by a yard. So now our base of it is 3 feet wide, 3 feet long, right? So we've got 9 here. Now I go to cube it, and I have to go 3 feet tall. So now my first foot has 9 cubes.
I get it.
My
I did
second
9
foot
times 9.
has 9 cubes. My third foot has 9 cubes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did 9 times 9.
I need to get some of those little, anyone have that storage thing in your bedroom that has like all those little fabric cubey things that you can put laundry in or whatever? I need to bring some of those. Okay, so none of you, whatever.
I do.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Fabric.
They're approximately 1 foot cubes. and I just am realizing in my head I have 1 foot cubes that I could bring in and
Wait,
kind
I
of
think
show.
I have those.
Right, they're open at the top, so you can do it real easy.
Are you like just
So-
pull them out of like blocks and
Now,
Oh yeah.
I am happy. Hey, I am happy to take any questions that are frustrating you, like as you look through it and you're like, wait, why did I get that wrong? Happy to take any of those and talk about them. Or this is your time to just start working on revisions. Hold on, listen. If all you're doing is adding Soph in the labels that you missed, you may do that on the original mastery. If you are changing math, that has to be on graph paper. And if you are changing any numbers, any actual math, that needs to be on separate graph paper. Any questions? Guys, most of you, the mistakes you made, you can probably fix in the next 9 minutes. And you got 9 minutes to, like, that's a while, actually.
so you can put labels on the paper, right?
Yeah, if that's like, so, oh, and if I put an L question mark, guys, that's because I got tired of writing labels question mark. L question mark is not me calling you a loser. It's me saying, where's your labels? Although, I mean, if you relate not putting labels on your paper to being, that's up to you.
But just and then just so you know, I have a question. Should I use a pencil to write labels back?
Yeah, and that was revisions. Yeah, you can pick your pencil, but just when we were checking answers was use a highlighter. Now, if you want, you could like grab a colored pencil or pen or something to make it obvious that it was like something new you wrote there. But like, you know, if I have an L question mark, I know that you didn't have labels, so I'll be looking for labels. So let me stop this.